All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Real Talk with Rick podcast. A third, I guess we'll call it. I don't know what it'll be titled. It'll probably be titled a third COVID conversation. And the first two, the first conversation you can go back and listen to probably over a month ago now when this started, was with Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director Scott Gerber. And then a few weeks back, it was Dave Lindahl, our Economic Development Manager. And for this conversation, it's going to be Johnny, our producer, podcast producer, and I just kind of going through a few various items going on here, maybe an update on the city and where things are at. So I'm just going to kind of run through a couple different things that are going on. But Johnny, I think you were the very, very, very first guest we ever had when we tested this thing out, and then I think you and I did an episode last summer. So you're very familiar with talking into the microphone while you're also making sure that this is recording.
Definitely. I've got a lot of practice as the guinea pig.
Good. Yeah, and I think the last couple conversations, too, I was referring to you as Johnny Exotic. And, because we both kind of talked offline about how we were watching the Tiger King, but that's kind of probably early pandemic,
yeah,
right?
That's old news now.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are you watching now?
Well, my wife and I really just binge watched Ozark for about a week there. We got through all 3 seasons, and then I just started the Last Dance on ESPN yesterday and whipped through those first 4 episodes, so I'm already all caught up and just eager to watch some more of that, to see some more MJ.
Yeah, are there going to be 10? I've seen them too.
I don't know. It's either 8 or 10. I thought I heard 8, but
all right. So
either way, there's a lot of good stuff left, I can tell.
So they follow the entire 1997-98 season, his last year there when they won their 6th championship. But they go back to when I was in grade school going into high school when he got drafted out of North Carolina. But you, 97-98, you had to be a little kid at that.
Yeah, I would have been 11, 12 years old.
So you remember watching him play for the Bulls?
I remember my cousin was a huge basketball fan. He's probably about your age, my cousin, and he was just really into NBA Jam on like video games and stuff like that, and playing NES and Super NES. But he was a huge Jordan fan, and I remember going to his uncle's place and seeing them just be glued to the television when Michael Jordan was playing on TV. It was just awesome to watch, looking back at it.
Oh, yeah. My daughter, my high school age daughter, comes home with a pair of the old, they're like red and black or red and white Jordan shoes of like the 80s, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had those. So it's like, here we are, 40 years later? Not 40 years later, but 30-some years later. I had those in like 86, 87, when I was freshman, sophomore in high school, and she's wearing them now. So
they weren't your pair from back in the day, were they?
No. She got her own pair, but I wore those shoes. I've seen those shoes.
Yeah.
But are you going to ask me if you need to have like 48 hours off in the middle of the week?
I got to go to Vegas.
I got to go to Vegas.
Just like Rodman.
So that was like episodes 3 and 4, the ones that you just watched, right?
Yep.
And people kind of vaguely remember some of this stuff, but until you really see it replayed, like he's going to Vegas.
That's wild. I don't get how that could happen. There's no way that would fly today. No way.
I think Phil Jackson worked to the strengths of his individual players, right?
Yeah, he seems like a pretty cool coach. I didn't know as much about him. Obviously, I learned a lot more watching this, but he coached some great teams with the Bulls and the Lakers.
Yeah. But Michael Jordan went to Vegas to pick up Dennis. He went to get him, right?
Yeah, that was a wild story. Yeah.
Do you think he stopped and did any gambling on that?
I don't know. He doesn't seem like the gambling type.
All right, fair enough. But so you got that. Ozark, yeah, I've seen Ozark as well. But it's one of those things where you want to get outside, right? But at other times, we've talked about this without live sports. You're watching Netflix or Amazon or HBO, ESPN, right?
Right, yeah. I've been getting ready to move, too, so that's taken up a lot of my time recently, but...
You're going to move where you live, but you're not changing your job situation.
No, I'll be staying here.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, good to hear. All right, so let's. I got a couple things I want to go through. That just kind of got us warmed up a little bit. But what we did recently we did a survey. We used this tool called Polco, Polco. It's kind of a polling tool, but really it's a chance for residents to give our city feedback on different issues. We've used it for questions related to our budget, certain city services, certain programs. But we actually, just this past week, sent out the survey to our residents about COVID-19. And I think that this particular survey was a resident check-in survey. Previously, we did a survey about how people are getting their information about COVID. And we really only asked just a couple questions and then just asked for a lot of comments. And I have the results. I think some of it might still be running. So I have the results through today, but there's like 500-600 people that have commented. So, Johnny, I find this fascinating. And this is Eden Prairie. So this is where people in Eden Prairie are at. When we ask them about this pandemic, obviously it's very challenging and it's infecting people in the community in all kinds of different ways. But when we give them like 12 or 13 different things to list as a major problem, a moderate problem, a minor problem, or not a problem, I thought it was kind of interesting what people came up with as the biggest problem. So, for instance, it was, as a big problem, shortage of food, shortage of cleaning supplies, feeling alone and isolated, household members not getting along. That actually, I'll give this away. That's probably the one that rated highest as not a problem. So thank you, Eden Prairie household members, for getting along. Lack of being able to use technology, lack of employment, lack of income, feeling nervous and anxious and not knowing when this will end. And there was a pretty clear consensus here on what's the biggest problem with our residents on there. Do you know what do you think that might be?
I've been monitoring the public sentiment on social media and stuff, and I would think maybe the homeschooling is the biggest issue. It's tough for people to work while they're teaching their kids. Yes.
So help my children with online schooling is actually kind of in a minor problem area. But when I read some of the comments, I'll mention that. But the biggest concern is not knowing when this will end, a feeling of loss of control, and feeling anxious.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of finding a way to get food, finding a way to deal with unemployment or income or employment or working from home or schooling from home. Those are all issues, but at least the number one issue is this anxiety and this nervousness and when is this going to be over. So in terms of some of the comments, they're all anonymous, and I'm just going to throw some out there that I think really encapsulate what's happening. So for instance, if someone says, I'm single and I'm home alone a lot, it gets lonely, it can be hard to concentrate while working, and I worry about the future. So, I think one of the things there too is, and I need to think about this, the people that are kind of on their own and live alone, that I think, we got to find a way to maybe stay in touch with those people. You're obviously, you're dealing with your work and your family, but just thinking that there are people that are completely isolated. So I think that's an issue, but
yeah, it's tough. I have some friends in that situation where they're single and just trying to find ways to reach out to them and connect with them using technology has been really helpful for me. There's a lot of great apps that have really come to the forefront recently so that people can video chat and play games through videos. And believe it or not, I know somebody who ended up meeting a boyfriend now, just video chatting.
Really?
Yeah. So
is that how you met your wife?
Well, we met in person. These people haven't met yet, and they're boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
And they met through a dating app and just have communicated through FaceTiming. And
so do they say on like Facebook we're in a relationship?
I don't know if they've gone that far. That's pretty official once you do that.
No, that's fascinating. Again, we are just feeling isolation. Even outdoor gatherings and small groups would help. Worrying about others, and I'll get to that, but worrying about others not respecting social distancing. And then merchandise availability in general can be difficult. I've been to several different places in Eden Prairie, the grocery stores, Costco, Target. I think I've been to all the grocery stores. And I think I'm seeing it feels like there's a fair selection of most everything. Have you seen that too?
Yeah, it's gotten much, much better. In the initial stage for the pandemic, when it broke, there was the hoarders that were going out there and gathering a lot of those items that people need. And I've just seen online over time that the stores have restocked those, and there's a lot more availability now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be interesting that today's date, April 30th, today, that we're probably going to hear an extension of an order that goes from May 4th to May 18th, but a loosening up of some restrictions in the ability of some businesses to be able to, even non-essential ones, to do all kinds of curbside retail. So we'll see what happens with that. And then also, I mean, just the difficulty of visiting others and family. Someone here said, I'm unable to visit a disabled daughter who lives in a group home. She gets good care, but it can be very difficult when we're unable to see her, and there's a certain routine that we have with seeing her that's now disrupted. And then also someone saying, you know, my mother is in memory care and her health is failing and I can't be with her, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, so, those are some of the toughest stories out there.
Yeah, that's just really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Couple things, not being able to swim and hoping that our community center opens up. We hope we get to that too. Testing, a lot of people talk about testing and when we're going to see more testing. We talked earlier about online school here. Somebody said online schooling with a kindergarten is nearly impossible working from home. And I think I say that with Dave on the last podcast, that the people that I feel for, obviously in addition to those that can't see their loved ones or those that have like 2 or 3 kids running around their lap, their desk, their computer while they're trying to do work, and then they're also doing online schooling. That comes up here quite a bit.
It's amazing. It's unbelievable. I really give a lot of credit to the parents out there that are taking on those multiple roles right now. That's pretty awesome that they can do that.
Yeah, and then I read something about this in the paper today, but someone having knee surgery scheduled and other issues with medical concerns that, you know, that's getting backed up, but I think there's a hope for some of that coming back as well. Another comment, just the uncertainty in the progression of the entire pandemic. Another comment, nothing significant, but we need to get the teenagers back to some normalcy. They're suffering from a lack of opportunity to socialize. This is going to lead to mental health issues, and we need to ease things in soon. So there's also that too. There's everything's on a spectrum, right? On a spectrum of what should be open to what should be closed. But there's a sentiment in here in the survey and throughout Eden Prairie about opening up. I mean, to the degree of a couple comments I won't read about just open everything up right now, to easing in, but also those that are saying, you know, that their opinion is the governor is doing the right thing and stay the course. There is, again, not being able to see elderly parents, wanting to be able to go to playgrounds. Here, it's next to impossible to be a working parent household with demanding jobs and household elementary school, let alone a kindergartner and Spanish immersion. It's nearly impossible. So that's really tough. And then, and you talked about this earlier, someone talking about moving. They're moving from another state to here in the middle of all this. So when you found your home, was that before things hit, or were you doing these virtual showings, or what was that?
It was right before the pandemic hit, so it was early March when our offer got accepted, and then we sold our house, or we accepted an offer on our current home about 2 weeks later, so that was after the pandemic broke. Luckily, we were able to sell our home. We're getting ready to move here this coming weekend and the following weekend. We actually have a longer window of time where we can move because we just have 2 weeks between our closings, so it'll make things a little easier for us, and we don't have to travel across state lines or anything. I feel for those people that are doing that, that'll be tough.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, whether it's a medical procedure that's been delayed or moving. And then there were a couple comments in there about not seeing the social distancing that's recommended and amongst neighbors and others. And, I get reports about that come into our police department, non-emergency 911. We're not actively going out and patrolling our parks and trails and playgrounds or areas for social distancing, but we will, take complaints and calls. And for example, there's probably like 7 or 8 of these that I could read from our own police department reports that we're getting about social distancing. And I think those bear in mind that people in Eden Prairie actually are doing a really good job with it. But, there's everything from, so in the report it'll say RP, and that's reporting party in terms of police lingo. But there was, for instance, RP, these are calls into our police department. Reporting party RP concerned that too many people using the basketball court and tennis courts at Starring Lake. The follow-up said the courts were full, but people were maintaining social distance. Another party concerned about a barbecue in a neighborhood. Resident was having family over. Everybody was outside and safely distanced from each other. And also there'll be calls concerned about basketball and neighborhood games. But again, a call came in that said 25 kids were playing basketball at Round Lake Park. The officer found 2 people playing. And I guess there are scenarios where they're not coming with lights and sirens on, but I think they are coming relatively quickly, so it's not a matter of showing up an hour later after everybody leaves. I know there may be instances of people have left, but again, another call that 10 to 15 people were playing basketball at Edenvale Park. The police found 3 groups of 3 playing, no violations. There was a concern around Easter about a neighborhood Easter egg hunt that was called in, and a CSO, community service officer. So we have community service officers, non-sworn, they're not sworn police officers that help us out, talked to the homeowner, and the eggs were spread out in the front lawn so the kids could collect them as they walk by. So I think, again, we understand that there are a lot of concerns and people are calling in. There are a few examples where we are doing some education and we're telling certain groups to spread out a little bit. But what we are seeing is actually pretty good social distancing for the most part. Again, we're not everywhere all the time, and that's at this point in time. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know, Johnny, in your travels, what you've witnessed with this whole social distancing issue outdoors.
I've found that people have really discovered great ways to get creative so that they can maintain that physical distance but yet still socially interact. That's kind of nice. People, like you said, have created ideas like the egg hunt where people from different households don't have to physically interact with each other, but they can still participate with each other in similar activities. So that's been nice. And then also people have been doing chalk art and putting art in windows so that when people go on their walks, they can identify that this person did something nice for them because of the social distancing. So
yeah, it's funny. The scavenger hunt thing I've seen too, where I'm out jogging and I see like by some tree in a park, there's like a bunch of stuff kind of planted and like messages in like a Tupperware container, and I saw like a bunch of kids putting that in there, and then they leave, and then I think I saw a different group of kids later on kind of reading it. So it's like some kind of communication without people being able to be with each other.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah. Kind of brings you back in time a little bit.
Yeah. So. Are you saying more me than you?
Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
No, I was thinking more like the 40s and 50s, before there was any kind of technology.
Okay, that's...
Not when you were growing up.
All right. Did you get a phone when you were about the age to get a phone, like a 14, 15-year-old? You were handing a cell phone?
I didn't get one until I was a freshman in college. But there were some kids when I was in high school that started getting phones at that time.
Okay.
I'd say I was probably in 9th or 10th grade when I first saw a kid have a phone in school.
Okay. So. But you've known life with the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much since I was in elementary school. Yep.
Okay. Just level setting that whole discussion back to the 40s and 50s when people didn't have the internet and an Apple phone. And can you? I mean, I think we've talked about this before. And so many people, I'm sure, are thinking this. If what we're in now had happened even in the 80s, just the whole issue of working from home, all the apps, the Zooms, the WebExes, all that, it's just, it would be, I'll leave you a message in a Tupperware bowl under a tree down the block.
Yeah, I think it would be chaos.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we would have figured something out back then. So a couple more things. City business continuing. I mean, that's been a theme since the very beginning. I think the mayor, and I was part of a fireside chat. The mayor did a video, I think, the very first week that this was happening. And at that time, we talked about buildings are closed, but work continues. And then with Chief Gerber, firefighters, police officers, building inspectors, park maintenance, streets, fleets. There's so many people that are out and about. But in some respects, everybody continues to work, whether it's in the field or not. So we've had some communication internally here where we've had some different divisions share on our in our own internal communications all that everyone's doing to let everybody else know what's happening. And so, for example, like even police investigations. So you think about all of our detectives, they're working from home. Police detectives are, not patrol. And they're working from home, and they're using technology to interview victims and witnesses of crimes over the phone. They're using electronic signatures for warrants. And I think they're saying, while many crimes have decreased, like theft from vehicles or theft from homes, there are increasing crime in other areas like shoplifting or catalytic converter thefts. I was joking with one officer that I think the burglary, someone who makes a life in burglary is having a tough time because there's not going to be many places you're going to sneak around in the daytime and try to get in someone's house or garage pretty easily, right?
Right. There's a lot more eyes out there now.
But again, that continues. The community center, huge part of the city's operation, as everyone knows, has been closed since March 17th. But we continue to focus on recreation, and we've had these on-demand fitness classes, like 900 different classes that are offered free of charge, and the ability to suspend memberships and not charge for memberships while the facility is closed. But I know you work when you're not producing this podcast, which is 99% of the time, you're working with Parks and Recreation.
Yeah. Yep.
So you know that they're continuing to kind of plug away.
Yep. Still planning for summer and for fall. Still kind of up in the air with what's happening for summer, but getting that ready and then find new ways to do things. So, yeah, they're still busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we continue to treat our water. We continue to have our utility crews out. We have, 3 or 4 person teams that work together in set shifts. But we continue to do our field operations, our building inspections. Division is in full force. I may have mentioned that in a previous podcast, that construction continues, development continues. But what's kind of interesting is we're not going in anyone's homes, but yet we're still producing the same, if not more, inspections than we had in the past, where people are able to meet at the curbside to get permits, but also they're able to submit a photograph virtually of the work being done. It's kind of shared back and forth, so we're really doing a lot of these virtual inspections as well. But in fact, I mean, just in a 3-week period from the end of March to almost the end of April, we issued over 250 permits and did over almost 270 inspections without going inside property, without having this building being open. We're still reviewing plans. We're still issuing permits. And I think you asked me earlier, do I see some changes being made when this is all over based on what we learn now? And I think one possibility is the continued use of being able to submit photos, do building inspections virtually.
Totally makes
why
sense.
not
It would speed up
that?
the process, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, people might, if they're driving around Eden Prairie, construction's still occurring. Shields is still being constructed. A lot of the apartment complexes are still being constructed. Senior living complexes, Southwest Light Rail Transit. I'm not aware of any major projects that have stopped or even paused where we're at. Obviously, we don't know what the long-term view is on real estate and development. We'll see. And I know from a city standpoint, this probably relates to the last update I have is related to the city's finances and the city's budget, is we'll have to track what happens with the real estate market and the development market, but we feel that we're really well positioned. One thing is, if people are reading about different communities throughout the country or even the state that are facing huge budget shortfalls, that's not something that we're currently dealing with or anticipate that we're going to deal with. We, Eden Prairie, and similar to many of the suburbs around us, our main revenue source is property taxes. We even know that there's, and supported, a delay in the payment of property taxes that people have that they would give to the county, for a month or 2 months, because we have budget reserves available to get us through. So we support the relief that people could have with property taxes. But we're not reliant on income taxes or sales taxes. There's other states. There's other states in the country where the city relies on sales taxes. So when everything shuts down and there's a huge drop in sales tax, then you might read about X city's budget has a 30% hole. Our issue from a revenue standpoint is actually probably going to be from recreation, park and recreation programs. When a lot of your activities that people pay certain fees for, whether it's at the community center or in sports leagues, if we don't receive that revenue, that's going to be a hole in the budget. But if you look at the entire city's general fund budget, we're thinking at most like a 2% to 3% at worst right now, as it sits right now, kind of hit to that budget. Whereas others that might rely on sales tax, hotel lodging, local government aid from the state, or other operations, that's where you might be hearing about a 10, 15, 20% hole in their budget. And I know there's different enterprises that cities have, like golf courses, which we don't, or certain operations. But yeah, it affects our ICE operations and our community center. But in the overall scheme of things, at least right now, we're in a really good fiscal position. So I know that comes up now and then too. And even 6 weeks, 7 weeks into this, we're looking 6 months or a year ahead, but we feel confident in how we're going to be able to manage this. So Johnny, you'll still get paid.
That'll help with the house.
Yeah. That's right. That the mansion on the lake.
Yeah, right.
All right. I think we'll probably wrap it up there. I don't know how long this ran.
I gotta know though, are you gonna start growing a beard now? It seems like all the other guys in town are. The mayor said he grew his beard for the first time since he was in college. When's your beard coming in?
Yeah.
Or is it in fully right now?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I could get a beard. Remember the no shave November for cancer? And I did, I think for about 15 days, like 7 years ago, I didn't shave, and I had people coming up to me saying, are you okay? What is that? What happened? So no.
Now's the time to do it. Maybe a mustache.
No.
The wife says no?
No. I don't. She doesn't care. She could care less. She's like, if you want to look like a fool, my kids will just laugh at me. It doesn't matter. But no, I'll let it go a few days at a time. But no, you're right, Johnny. The mayor, I've seen many people here in City Hall. Many, but you've had a beard, COVID, no COVID.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of that.
How about haircuts? What have you done for that?
I was lucky enough to have my last haircut about a week before this all hit.
Okay.
But I don't know, I'll have to figure something out.
It's looking good still.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking good for a podcast. But you and I do know of some people that are kind of getting the basement haircut on their own. But I'm more focused on my dogs. I'm gonna have to give my dogs their own haircut. So their hair is getting out of control, and I'm just gonna have to take that into my own hands. But I think my hair, I'll let it go.
You could go for my look, get the buzz going on.
Yeah, never know. So
the bald guy buzz.
But we're like a good tandem. You've got like the no hair on top of your head and then the beard, and then I've got the hair on top of my head, no beard.
That's
so
right.
we're a good combo. Good combo, Johnny. Well, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next time.